The moment Kendra slid the prenup across the old wooden desk with a smile that felt like a slap, she truly believed she was protecting herself from a broke man with nothing but calloused hands and big dreams. But what she did not know was that somewhere across the city, a sealed envelope had already been opened, and inside it was a legacy worth $4 billion waiting to fall into the same hands she was mocking. The room they sat in was small and ugly in a way that made you feel like life had already decided you were not important. The paint on the walls looked tired and cracked. The metal shelf behind them leaned slightly like it was ashamed to be holding dusty files. A single lamp on the desk threw a harsh yellow light over the papers like it wanted to expose every weakness. And Kendra loved that setting. Because she wanted this moment to feel like power. She wanted it to feel like she was above him. She wanted it to feel like she was doing him a favor just by being in the same room. Darius Cole sat in the chair on the left side of the desk wearing a plain white shirt that looked clean but cheap. His hands were big and rough from working jobs that did not care about your dreams. His face was calm but tired. And his eyes carried the kind of quiet that comes from a man who has swallowed too many disappointments without letting them turn him bitter. Kendra stood beside him in a fitted red dress with her arms folded and her wedding ring flashing under the desk lamp like a warning. Her hair was perfect. Her perfume was expensive. Her smile was sharp. And she kept glancing at the paper like she could already taste victory. The lawyer on the other side of the desk cleared his throat and said, "This document is a prenuptial agreement." He said it outlines what happens to assets in the event of a divorce. He said it is meant to protect both parties. Kendra laughed quietly and shook her head like the lawyer was being too polite. She leaned forward and tapped the paper with one finger. She said, "It protects me." She said, "Because I worked too hard to let a broke man take what I built." Darius did not flinch. He simply looked down at the document. The words felt heavy even though it was just paper. Kendra leaned closer. She said, "Darius, you should be grateful." She said, "Most women would not marry a man like you." She said, "A man with no savings, no property, no connections." She said, "I am the one with a career." She said, "I am the one with ambition." She said, "I am the one with something to lose." The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Darius remained quiet. Kendra mistook his silence for shame. She smiled wider. She said, "Sign it." She said, "I do not have all day." Darius picked up the pen slowly. His fingers held it like he was holding something that could cut him. He read the first page. Then the second. Then the third. And with every paragraph he felt his chest tighten. Because the prenup was not fair. It was a cage. It said if they divorced he would walk away with nothing. It said any business he built during the marriage would be considered hers if she contributed even $1. It said he could not claim spousal support. It said he could not claim the house. It said he could not claim anything. Kendra watched him reading and rolled her eyes. She said, "Why are you reading like you have options?" She said, "You do not." Darius looked up at her calmly. He said, "I thought marriage was partnership." Kendra laughed. She said, "Partnership is for equals." She said, "You are not my equal." She said, "You are my husband. And that is the only title you get from me." Darius felt the words hit him like cold water. Not because they were new. But because this time they were spoken without any mask. He realized Kendra did not just think he was poor. She thought he was less. The lawyer tried to soften the moment. He said, "Perhaps we should take a break." Kendra snapped that there would be no break. She said, "Darius can sign or she will cancel the wedding." She said she will not risk her future for a man who has nothing. Darius stared at the paper again. He could feel his pride begging him to stand up and walk away. He could feel his heart begging him to fight. But he also remembered why he was here. He remembered how Kendra used to be. Before the promotions. Before the new friends. Before she started measuring love in salaries and titles. He remembered late nights when they ate cheap noodles together. He remembered how she cried in his arms when she thought she would never escape her old life. He remembered how he promised her he would always be there. He remembered how he worked double shifts so she could finish school. He remembered how he sold his old car so she could pay for her certification exams. He remembered how he told her he believed in her even when she did not believe in herself. And now she stood in a red dress looking at him like he was a stain. Darius lowered his eyes and signed. Kendra exhaled like she had been holding her breath. Her smile became satisfied. She leaned down and kissed his cheek quickly like a queen rewarding a servant. She whispered, "Good boy." Darius froze for half a second. The lawyer collected the papers and placed them into a folder. He asked Darius if he understood what he signed. Darius nodded. Kendra laughed again. She said he understands. She said he is not smart but he is obedient. Darius stood slowly. He pushed the chair back. He did not say a word. Because sometimes silence is the only dignity left. They walked out of the office. Kendra's heels clicked on the floor like a countdown. Outside the building the evening air felt cooler. The sky was turning orange. Cars passed. People laughed on sidewalks. Life moved normally. But inside Darius something had shifted. Not into hatred. Into clarity. Kendra grabbed his arm. She said, "Do not look so sad." She said, "You should be happy." She said, "You are marrying up." She said, "You are lucky." Darius looked at her. He said softly, "I did not want to marry up." He said, "I wanted to marry you." Kendra scoffed and waved him off. She said, "Stop being emotional." She said, "Men like you always get emotional." She said, "That is why men like you stay poor." Darius felt his jaw tighten. He nodded once. He said, "Okay." Kendra smiled again, satisfied. She thought she had won. She thought she had secured her future. She thought she had protected herself from a poor man. She did not know that the future was already changing. Because while she was humiliating Darius in that small office across town, a man in a private hospital room had just taken his final breath. A man Darius had not seen since he was a child. A man whose name Darius rarely spoke because the pain of abandonment was too deep. A man who had lived in silence, building an empire in the shadows. A man who had written one name in his will. Darius Cole. And that man's attorney had just called Darius's phone. But Darius did not answer because his phone was on silent. Because he was walking beside his wife. Because he was trying to keep his dignity. The call went to voicemail. And the message was simple. "Mr. Cole, this is Attorney Wallace Bennett calling on behalf of the estate of Mr. Everett Cole. Please call me back immediately regarding an inheritance matter of significant value." Darius did not hear it yet. Kendra did not hear it yet. But the universe had already placed the twist in motion. And the prenup Kendra forced him to sign, thinking he was dirty poor, was about to become the most expensive mistake she would ever make. That night in their apartment, Kendra celebrated. She ordered takeout. She poured wine. She posted a picture online of her engagement ring and wrote about protecting peace and knowing your worth. Her friends commented. "Queens protect their bag. Smart woman. Never marry down." Darius sat on the couch quietly watching her laugh. He felt like he was watching someone he used to love disappear. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Darius ignored it. Kendra rolled her eyes and said, "Who keeps calling you?" Darius said, "Probably work." Kendra laughed. She said, "Even your job is desperate." Darius stood and went to the bathroom. He locked the door. He listened to the voicemail. And his world stopped. The attorney's voice repeated the words. "Estate of Everett Cole. Inheritance matter. Significant value." Darius felt his hands shake. Everett Cole. The father who left him. The father who vanished. The father who never called. The father who never showed up. Darius called the number back immediately. The attorney answered. He spoke with calm professionalism. He said, Mr. Cole, I am sorry for your loss. He said your father passed away today. Darius's throat tightened. He said my father. He said, are you sure? The attorney said yes. He said Mr. Everett Cole was your father and he left you as the sole beneficiary of his estate. Darius whispered, what estate? The attorney paused, then said, Mr. Cole, I need you to sit down for this. Darius leaned against the bathroom sink, his heart pounding. The attorney said your father's estate is valued at approximately $4 billion. Darius's knees weakened. He gripped the sink. He whispered, $4 billion. The attorney said yes. He said there are conditions and legal steps, but the inheritance is yours. Darius's mind went blank. Because in one moment he went from being mocked as poor to becoming one of the richest men in America. Darius ended the call slowly. He stared at himself in the mirror. He looked the same. Same face. Same tired eyes. Same hands. But everything had changed. He walked back into the living room. Kendra was laughing on the phone with her friend. She said, girl, I made him sign the prenup today. She said I am safe. She said he cannot touch my money. Kendra glanced at Darius and smiled like she was proud. Darius stood there silently holding a storm inside him. Because he realized something terrifying. Kendra thought she was protecting herself from him. But she had just signed her own future away. Not because he wanted revenge. But because she revealed her heart before the blessing arrived. And blessings have a way of testing people. Darius said nothing. He simply sat down. Darius will begin with deciding whether to tell his wife the truth. Or whether to let her keep mocking him. While he quietly stepped into a $4 billion inheritance. And watched who she truly was when she thought she was winning. Darius did not sleep that night because every time he closed his eyes he heard the attorney's voice again saying $4 billion like it was just another number in the world, when to him it sounded like thunder cracking open the sky. He lay beside Kendra in their small apartment listening to her breathe softly as if nothing had happened, while his mind kept racing through memories of his father Everett Cole. The father who disappeared when Darius was 9. The father whose name was spoken like a curse in the family. The father who left his mother to struggle. The father who never came back for birthdays. Never came back for graduations. Never came back for funerals. Yet somehow that same father had built an empire in silence and left all of it to the son he abandoned. Darius stared at the ceiling thinking about what kind of man leaves his child. Then leaves him billions. He felt anger. He felt confusion. He felt grief. He felt shock. But underneath all of it he felt something else. He felt the weight of a door opening. And he knew once he walked through it nothing would ever be normal again. Beside him Kendra rolled over and mumbled something in her sleep, then smiled faintly like she was dreaming about her future. Darius watched her. And the pain in his chest sharpened because just hours earlier she called him dirty poor. She called him not her equal. She called him lucky to have her. And she forced him to sign a prenup designed to leave him with nothing. The universe had handed him $4 billion. But the universe had also handed him the clearest picture of his marriage he had ever seen. When morning came Kendra woke up cheerful. She stretched like a woman who had secured her bag. She walked into the kitchen and began making coffee. She hummed. She scrolled her phone reading comments from friends praising her. She glanced at Darius and smiled. She said, you see. She said, now we can focus on the wedding without drama. Darius sat at the table quietly. Kendra poured coffee into her mug, then leaned against the counter. She said, I am proud of you. She said, you did not fight me yesterday. She said, you finally acted like a husband. Darius felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice calm. He asked her one question. He asked Kendra, do you think I am poor? Kendra laughed like the question was childish. She said, Darius, come on. She said, you work a warehouse job. She said, you drive a car that coughs when it starts. She said you rent an apartment. She said you do not have a degree. She said you do not even have savings. She said of course you are poor. She said it is not an insult. She said it is reality. Darius nodded slowly. He said okay. Kendra narrowed her eyes. She said why are you asking? Darius shook his head. He said nothing. Kendra rolled her eyes. She said you always do this. She said you get quiet like you are thinking deep thoughts. She said that is why you never move forward. She said you need to accept your place. Darius looked down at his hands. He thought about the call. He thought about the attorney waiting for him to come in. He thought about the documents he would have to sign. He thought about the estate. He thought about what it meant to suddenly have $4 billion. Then he looked at Kendra again. And he realized he did not want to tell her yet. Not because he wanted revenge. But because he needed to understand something. He needed to know whether Kendra loved him at all. Or whether she only loved what she thought he could give her. Because if she loved him, she would respect him even when he was broke. But she did not. So what would she become when she believed he was rich? That question haunted him. So Darius made a decision. He decided to keep the inheritance secret for now. He decided to move quietly. He decided to observe. Because $4 billion does not just change your bank account. It changes the people around you. It reveals them. Later that morning Darius told Kendra he needed to go to work early. Kendra nodded distracted. She said okay. She said do not forget we have dinner with my family tonight. Darius's chest tightened. Kendra's family. The people who never liked him. The people who always looked at him like he was a charity case. The people who treated Kendra like she was too good for him. Darius nodded. He said I will be there. Kendra smiled satisfied. She said good. She said wear your best shirt. She said I do not want them thinking I married down too hard. Darius left the apartment. He did not go to work. He drove across the city to a tall building in the financial district. A building so clean and expensive it made his old life feel like a different planet. He parked and sat in the car for a long time before stepping out. Because walking into that building meant accepting the truth. It meant accepting that Everett Cole was not just his father. He was a billionaire. And Darius was now the heir. When Darius entered the lobby he felt eyes on him. Not because they recognized him. But because he did not look like the people who belonged there. His shoes were clean but worn. His shirt was plain. His posture was humble. A receptionist looked up politely. Darius said he had an appointment with attorney Wallace Bennett. The receptionist's expression changed instantly. She sat up straighter. She asked for his name again. Darius said Darius Cole. Her eyes widened slightly. She typed quickly. Then she smiled. She said Mr. Cole please come with me. Darius followed her through hallways lined with art. The office doors were glass. The air smelled like money. He was led into a private conference room. Minutes later an older white man entered wearing a suit so expensive it looked like it was tailored by silence itself. He shook Darius's hand. He said Mr. Cole I am sorry for your loss. He said your father spoke of you often. Darius's stomach twisted. He said my father spoke of me. The attorney nodded. He said yes. He said he regretted many things. He said he wanted to make it right. Darius sat down slowly. The attorney placed a folder in front of him. He said this contains the estate summary. He said your father owned controlling interests in multiple companies. Real estate holdings. Investment portfolios. Private equity stakes. Art collections. Offshore trusts. And one foundation. The attorney slid another document forward. He said this is the will. He said you are the sole beneficiary. Darius stared at the paper. His hands shook. He whispered why. The attorney paused. He said your father was not a good man in your childhood. He said he made choices that caused pain. He said he believed leaving was the only way to protect you and your mother from the world he was involved in. Darius's eyes narrowed. He said what world? The attorney hesitated. Then he said your father had enemies. He said dangerous ones. He said he left to build wealth quietly and keep distance. He said he watched you from afar. He said he funded your schooling anonymously. He said he paid for your mother's medical bills through third parties. He said he never forgot you. Darius felt his throat tighten. He said if he never forgot me, why did he never come back? The attorney's eyes softened. He said because shame is heavy. He said some men would rather give money than face the pain they caused. Darius sat back. He felt anger rise. He felt tears press behind his eyes. He did not cry. He simply nodded. The attorney continued. He said there are conditions. He said the inheritance is yours, but it must be transferred through legal channels. He said there will be public attention once the probate process begins. He said you need security. He said you need advisors. He said you need to move carefully. Darius nodded slowly. The attorney then said one more thing. He said your father left a personal letter for you. He handed Darius an envelope sealed with wax. Darius stared at it. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a letter written in neat handwriting. Darius began reading. Everett wrote that he was sorry. He wrote that he failed. He wrote that he did not deserve forgiveness. He wrote that he built everything with Darius's face in his mind. He wrote that he wanted Darius to have the life he never gave him. He wrote that he hoped Darius would not become bitter. He wrote that money is not love. He wrote that money is not family. He wrote that money is only a tool. He wrote that the real inheritance was freedom. Freedom to choose. Freedom to walk away from anyone who disrespected him. Freedom to build his own legacy. Darius's hands shook as he finished reading. He stared at the letter for a long time. Then he folded it carefully. The attorney asked Darius what he wanted to do next. Darius took a deep breath. He said, I want to keep this quiet for now. The attorney raised an eyebrow. He said that may be difficult. Darius said, I know. He said, but I need time. He said, I need to protect my mother. He said, I need to protect my marriage. The attorney nodded slowly. He said, I understand. He said, but once the process begins the public will know. Darius nodded. He said, then I will be ready. The attorney arranged for Darius to meet with a private security consultant. He arranged for a financial advisor. He arranged for a temporary bank account. He arranged for Darius to sign initial documents. Darius signed them slowly. His signature looked the same. But now it carried a different weight. When Darius left the building, he sat in his car and breathed hard. Because he realized this was real. $4 billion was not a dream. It was now his life. He looked at his phone. He saw missed calls from Kendra. 3 calls. Then a text. Where are you? Do not embarrass me. Darius stared at the message. He felt a bitter smile form. Because Kendra still believed she was the one with power. He drove home. That evening he got dressed for dinner with Kendra's family. He wore his best shirt. He polished his shoes. He looked the same as always. Kendra stood in the mirror adjusting her dress. She glanced at him. She said, do not talk too much. She said, my family already thinks you are beneath me. She said, I do not need you proving them right. Darius nodded quietly. He said, okay. They drove to her family's house. A large home in a good neighborhood. Not mansion level. But comfortable. The kind of place Kendra wanted to upgrade from. When they arrived, Kendra's mother opened the door and smiled at Kendra warmly, then looked at Darius like he was a delivery man. Her father shook Darius's hand with weak grip. Her brother smirked. Her sister looked him up and down. They all sat at the dining table. Food smelled good. But the atmosphere felt sharp. Kendra's mother began asking questions about Kendra's job. Her promotion. Her future. Her goals. Then she turned to Darius. She asked him what he did again. Darius said he worked in logistics. Her mother laughed. She said, "Oh. So you move boxes." Darius nodded calmly. Kendra laughed too. She said, "Mama, stop." But her laugh was not protective. It was agreeing. The table laughed. Darius sat quietly. Kendra's brother asked Darius if he signed the prenup. Kendra smiled proudly. She said yes. She said, "I handled that." Her brother clapped. He said, "Smart." He said, "Because broke men love taking women's money." Everyone laughed again. Darius looked down at his plate. He felt the letter in his pocket. Everett's words. "Walk away from anyone who disrespected you." Darius lifted his eyes slowly. He looked at Kendra. She was laughing with them. Not once did she defend him. Not once did she correct them. Not once did she show loyalty. And in that moment Darius realized. The inheritance did not just change his future. It revealed his present. Because the people at that table were not family to him. They were predators waiting for weakness. And Kendra was their queen. Darius stayed quiet. Because the next thing would begin with Kendra pushing her cruelty even further. Not knowing the man she called poor had already become a billionaire. Not knowing the prenup she forced him to sign would soon become the very thing that destroyed her dream of controlling him. And not knowing that the first person Darius would tell the truth to was not Kendra, but his mother. The woman who suffered in silence while Everett Cole built billions in the shadows. Darius drove home from Kendra's family dinner with both hands tight on the steering wheel, and the silence in the car felt heavier than any argument because the kind of disrespect he heard at that table was not loud anger but casual cruelty, and casual cruelty is the hardest kind to forgive. Kendra sat in the passenger seat scrolling her phone with a satisfied smile as if the night had gone perfectly, and she did not even notice that Darius had barely spoken a full sentence the entire evening. When Kendra finally looked up, she laughed softly and told Darius that her family was only joking and that he needed to grow thicker skin because life is not gentle and neither is success. Darius kept his eyes on the road and answered calmly that he understood what jokes were and that what happened at that table was not joking but a reminder of how people behave when they believe you cannot change your situation. Kendra rolled her eyes and told him he was being dramatic again, and she said the truth was the truth and that he should stop acting like a victim because she married him anyway. Darius nodded slowly and said nothing else because he realized the most dangerous thing about Kendra was not her words but how normal she made disrespect sound, as if love required you to swallow humiliation. When they reached the apartment, Kendra stepped out first and walked ahead like she always did, and Darius followed behind carrying the quiet weight of a new life he had not yet revealed. Inside the apartment, Kendra kicked off her heels and said she was tired, and she said tomorrow they needed to finalize wedding plans and meet with the venue coordinator because she wanted everything perfect. Darius sat on the couch slowly and stared at the wall for a long moment while Kendra talked, and he realized that Kendra did not see him as a partner in the wedding but as a background character in her story. Kendra walked into the bedroom and called out that Darius should come help her choose between two dresses she wanted to wear to the bridal shower, and her voice sounded playful like she had not spent the whole night laughing at him. Darius stood up and walked into the bedroom calmly, and he looked at the dresses laid out on the bed and he nodded politely as if his opinion mattered. Kendra held one dress against her body and smiled at herself in the mirror. Then she said she could not wait to be Mrs. Kendra Cole because she said the name sounded powerful. Darius paused slightly because he realized she was excited about the title, not the marriage, and he wondered how long she would keep that excitement if she thought the title came with no money. Kendra turned to him and asked if he was okay because she said he looked strange, and Darius answered that he was fine, and he told her he was just tired. Kendra shrugged and said he should not be tired because he did not do anything hard, and she laughed at her own joke like it was cute. Darius forced a small smile and then he walked back to the living room and picked up his phone because he knew there was one person who deserved the truth before anyone else. He dialed his mother. His mother answered on the second ring and her voice sounded soft and worn the way it always did after years of surviving without help. She asked Darius if everything was okay because she said she felt something in her spirit, and Darius swallowed hard and told her that he needed to tell her something important. His mother became quiet immediately and Darius could hear the fear in her breathing because she thought someone had died or that Darius was hurt. Darius told her to sit down and his mother asked why, and he said because he was about to say something that would not sound real. His mother said okay and Darius heard a chair creak and then she said she was sitting and she told him to speak. Darius took a deep breath and told her that Everett Cole had died today, and for a moment the line went silent like the world had stopped moving. His mother whispered Everett and her voice broke like the name still carried a wound that never healed. Darius said yes and he told her that an attorney contacted him and he said Everett left him an inheritance. His mother laughed bitterly and said Everett always knew how to disappear when responsibility showed up, and she asked Darius what kind of inheritance a deadbeat father could leave. Darius paused and then he told her the number. He told her $4 billion. His mother did not speak for several seconds and then she whispered that Darius was lying and that he was trying to comfort her with a joke. Darius told her he was not joking and he told her he was sitting in an attorney's office earlier and he told her he saw the documents and he told her he saw the estate summary. His mother began crying quietly and she kept saying no 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 like the truth was too heavy to hold. Darius's voice softened and he told her he did not know how to feel and he told her he was angry and confused and hurt, but he also felt relief because the struggle might finally end. His mother cried harder and she said she spent years working herself to the bone and she said she begged God for help and she said she never imagined help would come from Everett's death. Darius told her he understood and he told her he was going to take care of her and he told her she would never worry about rent or medicine again. His mother tried to calm herself and she asked Darius if Kendra knew. Darius paused and then he said no. His mother asked why and Darius told her the truth. He told her that Kendra made him sign a prenup yesterday and she mocked him and she called him poor and she let her family laugh at him like he was nothing. His mother gasped and she asked if that was true and Darius said yes and his mother's voice changed instantly from sadness to fire. She said, Darius, you cannot let that woman touch your blessing. She said that girl does not love you. She said she loves what she can control. Darius listened quietly because his mother was saying what his heart already knew. His mother told him to be careful and she told him to protect himself and she told him to remember that money does not just bring comfort, it brings wolves. Darius told her he already saw the wolves and he told her that he was going to move smart. His mother asked him what he planned to do next and Darius said he was not sure, but he said he wanted to keep the inheritance quiet until he understood who Kendra really was. His mother laughed sadly and she said you already know who she is, but she said she understood why he needed to see it clearly. His mother then said something that hit Darius like a punch. She said Everett left you money but he also left you a test. She said the test is not the money. She said the test is the people around you. Darius sat in silence because he knew she was right. After the call, Darius walked back into the bedroom and Kendra was sitting on the bed scrolling wedding ideas and she looked up at him with a smile. She asked if he talked to his mother and Darius nodded and said yes. Kendra smirked and asked if his mother was still bitter about Everett leaving and Darius's jaw tightened but he kept his voice calm. He told Kendra that his mother was fine and then he said he needed to ask Kendra something important. Kendra sighed dramatically and said, "What now?" Darius asked her if she respected him. Kendra laughed and asked why he was asking such a stupid question. Darius repeated it slowly and asked her again if she respected him. Kendra leaned back and crossed her arms and she said respect is earned and she said men who are respected provide and protect. She looked him up and down and she said, Darius, you are a good man but you are not a provider the way I need. Darius felt his chest tighten. He asked her what she meant. Kendra said she meant that she wanted a man with ambition and status and connections and she said she was tired of carrying the relationship. Darius stared at her. He asked her if she felt like she was carrying him. Kendra nodded proudly and said yes, and she said that is why the prenup was necessary, because she said if she ever got tired she needed to leave without losing what she built. Darius nodded slowly. He said okay. Kendra smiled like she had won again. She said, do not worry Darius, you are still lucky because I am still here. Darius looked at her for a long moment and then he walked out of the room without another word. He sat in the living room again staring at the ceiling. He thought about $4 billion. He thought about the prenup. He thought about Kendra's words. And he realized something that made his blood run cold. Kendra did not just disrespect him. She was preparing to leave him. She was preparing her exit. And she wanted him poor when she did it so she could walk away clean. Darius's phone buzzed again. It was the attorney. Darius answered quietly. The attorney said the probate process would begin soon and he said there would be meetings with bankers and security consultants. Darius said he understood. The attorney then said one more thing. He said there was an event scheduled in 3 weeks. A private memorial and legacy announcement for Everett Cole. He said key business leaders would attend. He said the heir would be introduced publicly. Darius's stomach tightened. He asked if it was necessary. The attorney said yes. He said Everett demanded it. He said Everett wanted the world to know his son was taking over. Darius ended the call and sat still. Because now he had a deadline. 3 weeks. 3 weeks before the world would know. 3 weeks before Kendra would know. 3 weeks before Kendra's family would know. 3 weeks before every predator within 100 miles would smell money. And Darius realized the next thing would not be about hiding anymore. It would be about preparation. Because when the truth came out, Kendra would not just be shocked. She would become desperate. And desperation makes people do ugly things. So Darius stood up and made a decision. He would not beg for respect anymore. He would not chase love that looked like humiliation. He would prepare quietly. He would secure his mother. He would secure his future. And he would let Kendra keep believing he was dirty poor. Right until the moment she realized the man she underestimated was about to inherit $4 billion. And the prenup she forced him to sign would become the cage that trapped her instead of him. The next morning Darius woke up earlier than usual and the first thing he felt was not excitement about $4 billion but pressure, because he understood that money this big does not just change your life, it changes the way people look at you and it changes the way people plot around you. Kendra was still asleep when he got out of bed quietly and walked into the kitchen, and the apartment felt small in a way it never had before, because Darius knew he was standing on the edge of a new world and this place was about to become a memory. He made coffee and sat at the table staring at the wall while his mind ran through everything the attorney told him and everything his mother warned him about and everything Kendra revealed last night without realizing she was confessing her heart. When Kendra finally woke up, she walked into the kitchen in her robe and kissed Darius's cheek like a routine, and she asked if he was ready for the wedding planning meeting today. Darius nodded calmly and said yes, because he did not want to raise suspicion yet and he wanted to keep watching the way she moved when she believed she had the upper hand. Kendra poured herself coffee and started talking about venues and guest lists and photographers, and she spoke like the wedding was a business launch and not a marriage. Darius listened quietly and he noticed how she never asked what he wanted and never asked what he dreamed about and never asked if he was okay. She only asked if he could keep up with her schedule and if he could behave around her coworkers and if he could stop embarrassing her. Later that day they went to meet the wedding planner at a trendy office downtown, and the moment Kendra walked in her energy changed because she became sweet and charming and full of smiles. Darius watched her carefully because he realized she only became kind when there was an audience. The wedding planner greeted them warmly and asked about their love story, and Kendra laughed and said she saved Darius, and she said she took him from nothing and turned him into a husband. The wedding planner smiled awkwardly and Darius felt heat rise in his chest, but he remained calm because he knew his time was coming. As they discussed wedding details, Kendra kept choosing expensive options and she kept looking at Darius like she expected him to protest so she could remind him he was poor. But Darius did not protest. He simply nodded. He simply said okay. And that made Kendra even more confident because she thought his obedience was proof of weakness. When the meeting ended, Kendra walked out with a satisfied smile and she said she was proud of herself and she said this wedding would be her biggest statement yet. Darius asked what she meant by statement and Kendra laughed and said she meant her co-workers would finally respect her because she was marrying a man who would never hold her back. Darius looked at her and said softly, "You think I hold you back?" Kendra shrugged and said not intentionally, but she said your level is low and my level is rising and she said I cannot let love drag me down. Darius nodded slowly and said nothing else because he realized Kendra was already emotionally divorced from him even though the wedding had not happened yet. That evening Darius told Kendra he needed to visit his mother and Kendra frowned and said, "Why do you always run to your mother like a little boy?" Darius kept his voice calm and said, "Because she is my mother," and Kendra rolled her eyes and said, "Fine, but do not stay too long," because she said tomorrow they had dinner with her boss. Darius drove to his mother's apartment. When he arrived, his mother opened the door and pulled him into a tight hug and Darius felt something inside him soften because his mother's love did not come with conditions or jokes or humiliation. His mother made him sit down and she served him food like she always did even when she barely had enough and Darius felt his throat tighten because soon he would be able to give her everything she deserved. His mother asked him if he was okay and Darius told her the truth. He told her Kendra was getting worse. He told her Kendra was speaking to him like he was a burden. He told her Kendra's family was getting bolder. His mother shook her head and said, "Darius, I raised you to be a man, not a doormat," and she said, "Money or no money, you deserve respect." Darius nodded and said he knew. His mother asked if he planned to still marry Kendra. Darius paused because the truth was complicated. He said he did not know. He said part of him still loved who Kendra used to be. He said part of him wanted to believe she could change. His mother looked at him and said, "Love is not a memory, Darius," and she said love is what someone chooses every day. His mother then asked if Darius had told anyone else about the inheritance. Darius said no. His mother nodded approvingly and she said, "Good, because the fewer people who know the safer you are." His mother then stood up and walked to a small drawer and pulled out an old photo. It was a photo of Everett Cole. Younger. Standing beside a luxury car. Wearing a suit. His mother stared at it with a mixture of pain and anger. She said, "I knew he was doing something." She said, "I knew he was making money." She said, "But I never knew it was this." Darius asked her why she never told him Everett might be rich. His mother sighed and said because she did not want Darius chasing a ghost. She said she wanted Darius to build his own life without waiting for a man who left. Darius nodded. His mother then said something that made Darius sit up straighter. She said Everett came back once. Darius froze. He asked what she meant. His mother said Everett came back when Darius was 15. She said he stood outside the building watching Darius from across the street. She said he did not approach. She said he just watched. She said she saw him. She said she confronted him. She said Everett cried. She said Everett said he could not come close because people were looking for him. She said Everett said if he came near Darius he would put him in danger. Darius felt his chest tighten. He whispered, "Why did you not tell me?" His mother said because she did not want Darius carrying fear. She said she wanted him free. Darius stared at the floor. He realized Everett was not just absent. He was hiding. He was protecting. In his own broken way. And now Everett's last act was to give Darius the kind of power that could protect his mother forever. Darius hugged his mother again before leaving. His mother held his face and told him to be careful. She told him not to let Kendra smell money. She told him not to let anyone corner him. She told him to remember that blessings come with tests. Darius promised her he would move smart. When Darius returned home, Kendra was on the phone laughing. He overheard her saying yes, he signed the prenup, and yes, he is still broke, and yes, he is still grateful, and yes, I will be fine. Darius stopped in the hallway listening quietly. Kendra continued saying, "After the wedding I will push him to take a loan for a house, and when he fails I will leave," because she said she refused to waste her prime years on a man who cannot elevate her. Darius felt a cold wave move through him. Because he realized Kendra's plan was not just disrespect. It was strategy. She was already plotting her exit and she was using the prenup as her safety net. Darius walked into the living room. Kendra ended the call quickly and smiled. She asked how his mother was. Darius said she was fine. Kendra nodded and said good because she said she did not want his mother becoming a problem in their marriage. Darius stared at her. He asked what she meant by problem. Kendra shrugged and said mothers always try to control their sons. She said she did not want his mother filling his head with nonsense. Darius nodded slowly. He said okay. Kendra smiled satisfied. She said you see that is why I respect you sometimes because you know how to listen. Darius felt something inside him harden. Not hatred. Resolution. Because now he understood. Kendra did not respect him. She respected obedience. She respected control. And she believed she owned him because she believed he had nothing. That night Darius received a message from Attorney Bennett reminding him about the memorial event in 3 weeks and he attached a list of names who would attend. Business leaders. Politicians. Philanthropists. Investors. And at the bottom of the list was one name that made Darius pause. Kendra Johnson. Darius blinked. Because Kendra worked for a corporate consulting firm. And her firm had been invited to the memorial event as a service provider. Meaning Kendra might be in the room when the heir was revealed. Meaning the truth might hit her in public. Darius sat still staring at the screen. Because the universe was setting the stage perfectly. Kendra would not find out in private. She would find out in the most humiliating way possible. In front of the same kind of people she always tried to impress. And suddenly Darius realized he did not need to plan revenge. Life was already planning it. The next thing was coming. And it would begin with Kendra pushing Darius harder than ever to prove himself financially. Not knowing that the man she called dirty poor was about to walk into a room full of billionaires. And be announced as the heir to $4 billion. And when Kendra heard his name called, the prenup she forced him to sign would no longer feel like protection. It would feel like a noose tightening around her own ambition. The week after Darius saw Kendra's name on the memorial guest list he moved through the apartment like a man carrying a secret that was too heavy to set down because every time Kendra smiled at him he could hear the sound of her phone call again and every time she called him baby he could hear the way she laughed about leaving him once the wedding was over. Kendra on the other hand became even more energized as the wedding got closer because she believed she had already secured her future and now all she needed was to decorate it with the right pictures, the right venue and the right audience. She started waking up earlier. She started making lists. She started calling vendors. She started talking about their marriage like it was a brand launch and Darius watched her with quiet eyes because he realized Kendra loved the image of love more than love itself. 2 days later Kendra came home with a folder and dropped it on the table with a proud smile like she had just closed a deal. Darius asked what it was and Kendra said it was a wedding budget breakdown and she said she needed him to contribute more because she was not marrying a man who could not pay his share. Darius looked at the numbers. They were insane. A venue that cost more than his yearly salary. A photographer package that could buy a car. A bridal dress that looked like a mortgage. Kendra leaned on the counter and said she expected him to take out a loan. She said she already spoke to a lender. She said she could co-sign but she did not want her credit affected. She said he needed to handle it. Darius stared at her calmly. He asked why she wanted him to go into debt for 1 day. Kendra laughed and said because it was not just a day. She said it was a statement. She said people needed to see she married well. She said people needed to see she did not settle. Darius asked her if she thought he was settling. Kendra smiled and said no. She said you are settling. She said you are settling for a woman out of your league. She said you should be grateful. Darius nodded slowly. He said okay. Kendra's eyes narrowed. She said why do you keep saying okay like you have options? Darius looked at her and said softly, I do have options. Kendra laughed loudly. She said, what options? She said you do not even have savings. She said your mother lives in a small apartment. She said your job is nothing. She said you have no family. She said you are lucky I even looked at you. The words hit like a slap. But Darius did not flinch. Because he was no longer hearing them as insults. He was hearing them as evidence. Kendra walked closer and lowered her voice. She said, Darius, I am giving you a chance to be a man. She said, take the loan. She said, pay your share. She said, stop embarrassing me. Darius looked at her. He asked her one question. He asked if she would still marry him if he stayed broke forever. Kendra paused. Then she shrugged. She said, I do not plan to stay broke forever. She said, I plan to rise. She said, I need a husband who rises with me. She said, if you cannot rise, then you will not be my husband for long. Darius felt the final piece click into place inside him. Because now it was clear. Kendra was not marrying him for love. She was marrying him because she thought he was safe and controllable. And she planned to leave him once she had what she wanted. Darius stood up slowly. Kendra watched him suspicious. He walked to the bedroom and pulled out a small box. Inside were his mother's old earrings. A simple gift he planned to give Kendra on their wedding day. He stared at them for a long time. Then he closed the box and placed it back. Because he realized Kendra did not deserve anything that carried his mother's love. That night Kendra went out with her friends. She posted pictures at a rooftop lounge. She wrote captions about leveling up and soft life and marrying smart. Darius sat alone in the apartment. He called Attorney Bennett. The attorney answered quickly. Darius told him he saw Kendra's name on the guest list. The attorney paused and said yes. He said Kendra's firm was contracted for event coordination. He said she would likely be there. Darius asked if it could be changed. The attorney said it could, but he asked Darius why. Darius took a breath and said, because she is my fiancée. The attorney went silent for a moment. Then he said, Mr. Cole, are you sure you want her there? Darius said yes. He said, I want her there. He said, because I need to see her face when she realizes what she did. The attorney did not argue. He simply said understood. He said the memorial would be private but the heir announcement would be formal. He said the room would be filled with powerful people. He said the moment would be unforgettable. Darius ended the call and sat in silence. Because he knew the universe was about to deliver the truth in the most brutal way possible. Over the next 2 weeks Kendra pushed harder. She demanded the loan. She demanded Darius sell his car. She demanded he take overtime. She demanded he stop sending money to his mother. She demanded he focus on her. Darius remained calm. He did not fight. He did not argue. He simply watched. And every day Kendra grew more arrogant because she believed Darius's silence meant submission. Then the day of the memorial arrived. Darius dressed in a simple black suit. Nothing flashy. Nothing expensive. Kendra walked out of the bedroom in a sleek dress and high heels with her hair perfect. She looked like she was going to a gala. Because she was. But she believed she was attending as staff. As a worker. As someone close to power. She did not know she was attending as the future wife of the heir. In the car Kendra talked about networking. She talked about impressing the wealthy guests. She talked about how she might land a better position after the wedding. She talked about how she was tired of small people and small thinking. Darius listened quietly. The venue was a private estate outside the city. Huge gates. Long driveway. Security everywhere. Luxury cars lined up like a parade. Kendra's eyes widened. She whispered, "This is insane." She said, "Who was Everett Cole?" Darius kept his face calm. He said, "He was my father." Kendra froze. She turned toward him slowly. She said what? Darius said it again calmly. He said Everett Cole was my father. Kendra laughed nervously. She said stop joking. Darius did not smile. He simply looked forward. Kendra's throat tightened. She said Darius, what are you talking about? Darius said you will see. They arrived at the entrance. A man in a suit approached. He looked at Darius and his expression changed instantly. He opened the door respectfully. He said Mr. Cole, welcome. Kendra stared. Because nobody had ever spoken to Darius like that in her presence. Kendra stepped out and tried to walk ahead, but the man stopped her politely and asked for her credentials. Kendra blinked confused and said she was part of the event team. The man nodded and said yes ma'am, you will enter through the service corridor. Kendra's face flushed. She looked at Darius expecting him to correct it. Darius did not. He simply walked forward. 2 security men fell into step beside him. Not behind him. Beside him. Like protection. Like respect. Kendra's mouth opened. She called his name. Darius turned back and looked at her. He said softly, you wanted to know my level. He said you are about to learn it. Kendra's hands trembled. She followed behind him through the entrance. Inside the estate everything was gold light and quiet power. Crystal chandeliers. Soft music. Men in suits. Women in elegant dresses. People who spoke in low tones like their words were worth money. Kendra's eyes were wide. She kept looking around like she could not believe she was there. Then she saw the stage. A large screen displayed a photo of Everett Cole. And beneath it was the title. Celebrating the legacy of Everett Cole, founder of Cole International Holdings. Kendra swallowed hard. Because she recognized the name. She had heard it in business circles. Cole International Holdings was legendary. It was the kind of company people whispered about like it was a myth. Kendra turned slowly toward Darius. Her voice shook. She said Darius. Darius looked at her calmly. He said I told you you would see. Kendra's face drained. She whispered no. She whispered no no no. Darius walked forward toward the front row. An attendant guided him to a seat reserved. Reserved for the heir. Kendra stood frozen in the aisle. Her heart pounding so hard it looked like it might burst through her dress. Because she finally understood what was happening. She finally understood why the attorney called. She finally understood why Darius had been calm. She finally understood why he never fought her. He was not powerless. He was waiting. The room began to quiet as the host stepped onto the stage. The host spoke about Everett Cole. His life. His success. His philanthropy. His secrecy. Then the host said the words that changed everything. He said tonight we honor Everett Cole. And we welcome the man he chose to carry his legacy. He said please stand. Mr. Darius Cole. The spotlight swung. The entire room turned. And Darius stood slowly with calm dignity. Kendra's knees weakened. Her vision blurred. Her mouth opened but no sound came. Because the man she called dirty poor. The man she forced to sign a prenup. The man she mocked in front of her family. Was standing under a spotlight in a room full of billionaires. Being announced as the heir to $4 billion. And in that moment Kendra realized the prenup did not protect her. It protected him. Because she had just locked herself out of the greatest wealth she would ever touch. And she did it with her own hands. And the last thing Kendra saw before the applause exploded. Was Darius turning his head slightly. Looking directly at her. Not with anger. Not with revenge. But with the quiet expression of a man who finally understood his worth. And that was the moment everything ended. Because once a woman realizes she married a king while treating him like a servant. The regret does not come softly. It comes like a storm. And Kendra was about to be swallowed by it.